Hi, Katie and Peter here, and we are your guides in archetypes, mythosynthesis, and conscious living. And we're here to help people recognize patterns that they're living that are unconscious so that we can gain greater clarity, freedom, and purpose. And today we are going to dive into the archetypes, the roles that we play, and how knowing them helps us to choose our response rather than being ruled by old patterns. So by the end of this session, you'll see yourself in a whole new way. And again, joining me is Peter Luxrell. So Peter, today I just want to ask you what are archetypes?
Thanks, Katie, for your question. When we think about archetypes, we can think about the different ways that we present ourselves on a daily basis. We can think about them as patterns that represent the different characteristics or personalities that we exhibit on an ongoing basis. For example, we might see ourselves being an inner child, being a child where we just feel like I don't want to do anything, or I feel so tired, or we could see ourselves as a child where we're so optimistic and excited about life and, the future. And, we're not thinking about the risks involved in taking decisions. We're just like, I want to go, I want to do this. We could also see ourselves playing roles where, we're a nurturer, a caregiver. We just want to help people and nurture them and take care of them as much as we can, irrespective of sometimes to the extreme where we might, forget about our own needs. But at the same time, we do that because we're playing a specific role. And we could also embody the character of being a warrior where it's like, hey, time to go plan, mission, assignment, and we're just going. So there are specific characteristics that we embody on an ongoing basis based on life and life's impulses, and those archetypal patterns that rule or that we use to navigate our reality and our experiences. Thanks, Katie.
Yes, thank you so much. And so we are going to continue going on. Also, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to like, subscribe, and share to hear more of this wisdom that we're going to be continuing to bring to you. So, what I hear you saying is the roles that we play are kind of like the personality traits that come through us. Is that correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Perfect. And then also, what I heard you saying, like when you talked about the child and the innocent, you said some limiting attributes and some stronger attributes. And so, to my understanding, there's like a shadow and a light side to every archetype. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, when we embody an archetype, we, depending on how much we develop, but they have both the shadow and the dark side duality. The shadow side is the dark side is the weakness of that archetype, and the light side is the strength that we embody in that archetype. And so, for example, we talked about the child or the inner child archetype, having the shadow side of, feeling like a victim, or, feeling like it needs nurturing and it needs care from an external party. And the light side being that the shadow side is like, hey, let's go, let's just go and have fun. And it's able to release itself and have joy and excitement. And we find that with all the archetypes that we embody, the 12 archetypes, that they all have both the shadow and the and the light side. And the more when we become utilizers of the archetypes, we are able to transmute them from the shadow side and function with them more on their light side as opposed to the reverse.
That's beautiful. And to my understanding, sometimes that shadow side might be there to protect us in a way. And so, just an example is like maybe Peter and I are working together, and Peter gives me an idea of a way to look at things differently. And then my orphan, like that victim side, might come through that's afraid of being attacked and being left behind. So, I might respond from that way if that's my baseline pattern. Or I could choose and be like, okay, maybe I want to be the seeker and more of that curious person, be like, okay, what would happen if I tried on this new way of being? And so when we can start to see the archetypes, we can then consciously choose. And so then we can change the way that reality shows up for us, right? So then,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Yes. And so looking at that, why does that matter in life to be able to choose those roles?
It's an important distinction to make here that the shadow side essentially are the traumas that an individual has experienced through life. they get recorded and stored in the memory as shadows. There are patterns within, again, our psyche that, when each person was growing up, things happened that were not properly processed, and experience took place, and there wasn't a clear understanding as to why. And so the shadow essentially represents the area that we need to learn, lessons that we need to learn in order to mature in our psyche, in order to grow the ego, the persona, to become a mature soul. Why it's important is that both the shadow and the light side of the archetypes can be um, can be unconscious, meaning that a person, an individual, is playing those characters without actually being aware. So the individual becomes a character in this matrix, in this reality, this world that we live, as opposed to discovering for themselves what their story is, discovering for themselves what they believe their ultimate assignment in life is, and then beginning to choose to play the right roles in the right circumstance. So mastery and understanding of the archetypes gives a person the ability to be the ruler, empowers them to be the ruler of their life. And of course, we also have an archetype that is called the ruler, or called, the king or the creator. And though that archetype represents the fact that the person becomes conscious in every moment as to what role they are playing. They are no longer driven by the impulses from their bodily sensation or the impulses from their sense nature. They have now become awakened, they become aware, and they become the utilizer of their instruments and the utilizers of the archetypal patterns that are within the psyche. So it's important, um, so that an individual is no longer unconscious, but the individual is a conscious owner of their instrument, of their senses.
That's beautiful. So, what I hear you saying is that as people are living their day-to-day life, once we can start to see these different patterns and roles, then we can start to see, oh, is that what I want to play? Or do I maybe want to play a different role? And then as we start to make these conscious choices, it helps us to awaken to these patterns that might be holding us back from living our true nature or our true potential because there's fear from when this patterning that happened and conditioning from when we were younger. And so when we can actually see these aspects of ourselves and awaken through these different events that are blocking us from living again our true living fully, then we can start to then live fully without having anything blocking us from our true nature, which is what we all came here to do. Beautiful. That's very beautiful. So one thing that we've noticed with this work, Peter, and doing it ourselves and with our clients, we've now run through the Archetypal Awakening course. I think we've done it 3 times now. And what I feel that we're finding is that people are waking up to better self-love and self-care, and then they're able to set boundaries and step into that self-healing. And through doing this work, what we found is that it's a lot of having that community, self-awareness, and actually doing the work in a safe space. So is there anything more that you want to say about like doing the work or our community, and yeah, that safe space that we've been creating?
Absolutely. To your point, when a person begins to, what we've seen in the community is that people start to identify their stronger or strongest archetypes and begin to embody those one more consciously. And if a person feels that they are called to be, a mystic, a healer or a teacher, for example, then they become, what we are seeing is that they start to master those dimensions and become more conscious of, I want to be more spiritual in applying my gift. So when there's an opportunity for them to heal themselves or heal others, they don't fall into victim mode because they've mastered the archetype. They then arise and they, apply their spiritual techniques, whether it's prayer or, calling down energies or, Reiki. They use different modalities to then begin to heal themselves and heal others because they're embodying their magician. They've learned to embody the archetype that is a magician. And the same thing with people in our society, on our community, that are also recognized that they're called to be teachers. So they're beginning to embody the sage, learning, the specific areas that they want to teach people and coach people. Some of them, for example, who are in EFT, emotional freedom techniques, they're learning to utilize those giftings and teach people how to also perform these techniques on themselves to free themselves from trauma and different experiences. So yeah, in our society, we're seeing, and the community, we're seeing individuals stepping into their power by mastering their true, stronger suits or stronger sets of archetypes, and being more conscious as to when to embody those archetypes or archetypal patterns.
Beautiful, thank you. And yeah, as we get clear, what you often say, and I love Joe Dispenza too, where our attention goes, our energy flows. And so, like what we found is that if somebody's thinking, oh, I want to be a teacher or a healer, and I'm going to start embodying these archetypes, then things show up in the 3D reality for them to actually get to play that practice or play that role. And we've seen that time and time again, even just recently with one of our clients getting a caregiving role literally the next day after we talked to her. And she said, I don't see myself as a healer. And as we had the conversation, and began awakening to who she truly is and the gift that she brings by simply being herself, then she was able to get that opportunity in the 3D. And I just love to say this, it's really quick and easy to explain. If you buy a new car, you see them everywhere. So when we start to put in our minds what we want to see, then life will show up the way that we start to program it to. And lastly, as we bring these things forward and do this work, we found that sometimes it can feel a little messy. And so that is the value of having community and a safe, sacred space is that things might show up that feel uncomfortable and, like I said, messy. And so just knowing that when it becomes uncomfortable, that's how we know things are changing. If it's the same as it was yesterday, you're just having the same thoughts. And so, like Peter and I talked about, when you go to college, you hope to get a class that's a little bit confusing because you don't want it to be easy. You want to grow. And so, when you are ready to start looking more into the archetypes for yourself, definitely like, subscribe, and stay following us on this channel. And also, you can check out our Archetypal Awakening course at www.root-awakening.com. And this is a course that you can do either one-on-one with Peter and myself, or you can do as a group. And so just booking a discovery call and taking that time to get to know if this is the right fit for you and for us, because we want it to be a conscious choice. Again, we're here for conscious living. So before we leave for this day, Peter, is there anything more that you'd like to say?
Thank you, Katie. I do enjoy our collaboration and, working with the community and seeing people's lives impacted and changed. And we're hoping that more of our viewers remotely all around the world can also step into what we're doing and, participate and contribute and share and like. And also we can see this transformation taking place on a global scale. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I think it was Gandhi that said, be the change that you wish to see. And that ripple effect, as we show up for ourselves, it impacts our families and our communities in such a big way. And we don't always see it right away. But just hang in there and you will see the ripple effect. So we look forward to continuing to grow together. Much love, YouTube family.
Thank you.
So.